My name is Durva Amar Bhosale from TYBMS Section A, roll number 33. The topic allotted to me for my indirect tax project is definition of goods and services according to the CGST Act 2017. So let's begin. Introduction. The introduction of CGST Act 2017. It is a unified indirect tax levied on the supply of goods and services. It was introduced on 1st of July 2017. It clearly defines what falls under goods and services so that we know how to determine which transaction falls under which tax net. Why is it important? It is important because it helps us determine the taxability of every transaction, prevents classification disputes between taxpayers and tax authorities. It is basis for applying certain GST rates and exemption, and it helps us in calculating correct input tax credit. Now let us understand the key concepts and features of CGST. Firstly, it helps us clearly put goods and services into different brackets. So what falls under goods? Goods are every kind of movable property other than money and securities. Includes actionable claims, growing crops, grass, and anything that is attached to land but is severed before the sale. Now, services, anything other than goods, money, and securities are services. Includes activities related to use of money and its conversion, intangible rights, and renting of immovable property. Actionable claims, claims that are recognized by the civil court as debts. Example, lottery tickets, betting, and gambling. These are specifically treated as goods under the CGST Act 2017. And the last thing is money and securities. These are specifically excluded from the Act. However, charges of foreign exchange conversion of financial services are still taxable as services. Now let us understand its working and how it works. So the first step is to identify supply. Is there a supply in exchange of a consideration? Step 2 is classify. Is it a movable property? Then it's goods. If it is anything else, it is services. Step 3 check exclusions. Exclude money, securities, and immovable properties from the classification. And the step 4 is applying the GST. Find the applicable rate, check exemptions, and file returns. The next is the practical relevance of GST and its examples. So, examples of goods are mobile phones, cars, machinery, which fall under movable property. Then, agriculture produce, wheat and rice, if taxable. Lottery tickets, also something that we read before. Actionable claims are also considered goods. And imported goods. IGST is levied at the point of import. Now, example of services. Banking and financial services, such as loan processing fees. IT and software services, consulting, subscriptions, etc. Renting of commercial property. And India to US software export is zero rated supply. Now let us understand the advantages of the Act and its limitations. Advantages is it helps us reduce ambiguity and disputes by clearly defining the legal definitions. Second, one nation, one tax helps us in uniformly classifying across tax across all Indian states. Helps businesses correctly compute and claim input tax credit. Now, moving on to the limitations. The limitations of CGST Act are there are certain gray areas in classifying composite and mixed supply. Frequent amendments cause compliance challenges for businesses. And last, alcohol, petroleum, and certain items are still kept out of the scope of GST. Now, the conclusion for this project is that under CGST Act 2017, goods and services are clearly defined. Goods mean every kind of movable property, excluding money and securities, and including actionable claims. Then, Services. Services mean everything other than goods, money, and securities. The key takeaways from this project that I learned and I hope conveyed to you are: correct classification of goods versus services is the foundation of GST. Money, securities, and immovable property are specifically excluded from GST definition. Actionable claims, lottery, betting are treated as goods under the CGST Act. Proper classification of GST directly affects GST rates, exemptions, and ITC eligibility. Export of goods and services is zero rated, boosting India's international trade competitiveness. Thank you.